As a professional coach, I would never, ever, ever come on social media and tell my clients personal stories. And if you've ever heard me tell a story about a client, it's because I got consent previous to the post. So I just want to preface that here. And if you're a professional coach, please don't do that. But one thing I can do, because I have been coached so much, you guys. I can tell my own stories and how you can be a better coach through what I've learned through being both a coach and a client, okay? So I am Aquarius, Sun and Moon, pretty intelligent, also very intellectual with my feelings. And I have run multiple coaches around in circles through intellectualizing my feelings, okay? And as a coach, you have to know, number one, how to set the appropriate boundaries so that your clients don't do that and can't do that with you. But number two, how to get to the real heart of the matter so that both of you don't get distracted running circles around something that doesn't even matter in the first place. So I talked about this a lot in my last few videos, the places that I look in a human design chart to find my client's biggest distraction. Okay, so I've talked about how to find it. Now in this video, I want to talk about like what you do once you do actually find it. So I'm saying this from a completely healed state because I have done tons of coaching and self-reflection, but my pattern in past calls with coaches was to find a way to make myself a victim, okay? And as soon as I could no longer find a person to like be the villain in my story, I was in my like spiritual awakening journey. And so I started making like the universe the villain, right? So like, why is the universe against me? Why does everyone want to victimize me, right? And I was so convincing in this, right? In my arguments and in the way that I was articulating it, that I got almost every coach to like kind of agree with me and go, well, yeah, that actually does seem like a lot. That does seem like a lot to deal with, right? And I would get them to the point where they could no longer like support me because I was so convinced that I convinced them to also make me the victim. This is crazy. I can't believe I'm admitting this. Anyways, instead, okay, if they had had my human design chart to work with, instead, they could have looked at the two places in my chart where I was not wanting to look myself, okay? Number one, my most open center in my chart, reminder, like I said, I talked about this in a previous video, how to like locate this in your own chart. Anyway, my most open center in my chart is my ego center. So I'm always seeking validation, but validation is my black hole. It's my bottomless pit. So you can validate my experience as a victim over and over and over again, and I will find more and more reasons for you to feed into that. And so instead of continuing to feed this black hole as a coach, you would have to look at that and go, you know what? We're not going to keep throwing energy into this bottomless pit. We're going to empower you by looking for your strengths instead. We're going to empower you by looking for ways that you have always overcome all of these things that were challenging. We're going to empower you by looking at the defined root center and show you how you are continuously creating momentum. We're going to empower you by looking at the defined spleen center and seeing how you are trusting your instincts more and more. You're becoming more and more intuitive about your life. And because you can trust yourself and your instincts, you don't need all of that validation that you thought you did, right? This is one thing that if I were coaching myself, right, I would look at that and these are the words that I would use. And this is in the context of my chart. So I have a defined root to spleen, and that's it. Everything else in my chart is white, and the most open center is the ego center, okay? This is advanced human design stuff. If you want to know what I'm talking about, but you don't, I have a course where I teach human design in a very like streamlined, very easy to understand way. But if you're following, I hope this is helping, and I hope this is going to help you with your clients. Secondly, I look at the core wound, which is the design Mars placement. Now we ask the question, what is unhealed? What are you afraid of? What do you think that you can't have in this life that you actually can have? And for me, my design Mars is in gate 6. This is the gate of friction, but it also holds themes of intimacy, okay? So if I am able to put everyone around me into this like victim villain archetype, or to assign everyone some kind of, meaning, not meaning is not the right word. Everyone in my life has meaning in my life. But if I'm able to assign some kind of dynamic with everyone in my life that puts me in a mode where I still need to be validated, I'm going to be in trouble. And so it was a fear of intimacy that was kicking me into these modes of distraction. My gate 6, design Mars, okay? And so another question that a coach could ask me is, what would happen if or when you're able to actually just accept this? What would happen if or when you're able to actually open up to this person? Or what would happen if or when you're able to look at this relationship through the lens of unconditional love? Now, I know that that's not healthy in every single relationship, but it's a question to ask, right? It's not an action to take. It's something to be curious about. And it's another question that you can ask: where did I feel like I was not loved unconditionally, or where there were conditions put on intimacy or love or connection, and thus I feel like I need to find this surface level validation because I think that's the closest that I can get. This is such a vulnerable share for me. Anyway, this is where I look in my clients' charts, especially when we're coaching like over long term, to kind of recognize these patterns. And then human design helps us put language to these patterns, to these archetypes, and ask questions that are very, very specific to the narratives that your clients are creating, to the patterns that they are reliving over and over again. And now, this is when you get results. This is when you get this full perspective shift, this full mindset shift. And thus, when you shift the way that you view your reality, now you shift the way that you behave in your reality, and now you create lasting change, which is what has happened for me. Basically, kind of like coaching myself using human design, like continuing to be curious about my chart, continuing to self-reflect, continuing to ask questions, to journal, and of course, like pulling in support people here and there, being able to look at our connection charts and see what can be created through that relationship, through that partnership. And now I feel like I'm at a state where I can talk about these things very objectively because I don't do it anymore, because I don't need it anymore, because I don't crave it anymore. Almost, I would say at least weekly, but very, very often I am expressing gratitude. I am telling stories. I am sharing my happiness and my fulfillment around the connections that I have in my life, around the unconditional love that I feel in my family and in my friendships, and even in like coaching style containers where I meet new people. So with my clients, and also in places where I'm a client, where I feel this like wave of love and acceptance. And so I'm able to acknowledge that, and I'm able to see that that exists. And that's something that I've been able to like transition through self-reflection, through human design, through coaching, right? Through all of these modalities. And because that feels mature, because that feels healed for me, we're talking about my design Mars, now it's less likely that I fall into the trap of the distraction of my most open center, which is the ego center. Instead, I now can I can see the worth and the value in everyone. I can see the value in every interaction, in every relationship, even in every challenge in my life. And I can go, okay, cool, that was hard, but that's what I needed to do to get to the next level. I don't need someone to come in and tell me how great I am. I don't need someone to come in and validate my experience. I definitely don't need someone to validate my victimhood. That's the last thing that I want to be in this transition, right? After I've done all of this healing work. So this is how I get amazing, like glowing, crazy testimonials without asking. Any testimony, I would say like 90%. Sometimes I ask because I just know people live lives and they forget things. Occasionally I'll ask for a testimonial, but like 90% of the testimonials that I have and that I share in any of my like marketing, emails, sales pages, most of them are unsolicited, because someone feels so good after a reading, after a session, after, working with me as a coach, that they just have to come in and tell me. You can create this too. I just added 2 freebies to the links in my bio. One is a free webinar where I explain how I work with clients using human design, and one is a PDF ebook. Just click link in my bio and I'll email it over to you.